It all began with a government-led operation. On May 23, 2017, the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police attempted to capture Isnilon Hapilon. Hapilon was no ordinary criminal. He was recognized as the leader of ISIS in Southeast Asia. He was also on the United States' most wanted list. What was meant to be a swift and quiet operation instead ignited one of the longest urban battles in Philippine history. No one expected that a simple arrest would trigger a massive conflict that would last for 5 months and devastate an entire city. But Hapilon was not the only threat. When the operation to capture Hapilon began, the terrorists responded swiftly. They set fire to St. Mary's Cathedral, a church that stood as a symbol of peace between Christians and Muslims in the city. They took civilians hostage, including Father Teresito Chito Soganub and other worshippers, using them as human shields. The attackers also set the Marawi city jail ablaze and released the prisoners, most of whom ended up joining their ranks. Suddenly, the streets were filled with armed men in black, waving ISIS flags. For nearly 200,000 Marawi residents, that day turned into a nightmare. Everyday life came to an abrupt halt. Many people were trapped in their homes, too afraid to go outside because of snipers and gunfire. The roads out of the city became jammed with cars and people on foot, all desperate to escape. On the militant side, two main groups took the lead, the Maut group and the Abu Sayyaf group. The mastermind behind the siege was Isnilon Hapilon, who had been named the emir of ISIS in Southeast Asia. Alongside him were brothers Omar and Abdullah Maute. They were local commanders from a prominent family in Lanao del Sur. Their knowledge of the area, local support, and manpower were crucial to the attack. The militants were joined by foreign fighters from Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and even the Middle East. Some of these fighters brought battle experience from wars in Syria and Iraq. They shared their expertise in making improvised explosive devices and in urban warfare tactics. On the government side, the entire armed forces of the Philippines mobilized. The Philippine National Police worked closely with the military. President Rodrigo Duterte quickly declared martial law across Mindanao, giving the military greater authority. Generals and commanders devised a plan to retake the city block by block. For the first time, airstrikes were used extensively in a Philippine city, with ground troops, Marines, Navy, and police all joining the fight. The battle for Marawi lasted 5 months and unfolded in several distinct phases. The first phase was a swift assault by the militants, allowing them to seize control of much of the city. In those early weeks, the government's main focus was rescuing civilians trapped by the fighting. Peace corridors were set up by the government and MILF to help residents escape, but many people remained inside the city. Militants hid among civilians and used them as human shields. The second phase was a slow methodic effort to retake the city, what the military called clearing operations. Soldiers had to search every house and building, going door to door. Any door or window could conceal a sniper or a hidden explosive. Tunnels connecting houses let the militants move unseen through the city. Airstrikes targeted enemy positions that ground troops couldn't reach. This area became the main battleground. The third phase focused on the militants' final strongholds, retaking the city block by block. Places like Bato and the Grand Mosque saw some of the fiercest fighting. Every meter reclaimed came at a high cost in blood and sweat. When key militant leaders were killed and fighters began to surrender, the end of the siege was finally in sight. The victory in Marawi was not the result of a single group, it was the product of true teamwork. The Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and PNP all joined forces and worked side by side The army led the ground assault with scout rangers at the front lines. Special forces followed, entering the most dangerous areas, recapturing bridges like Mapandi and Bayabao, cut off the enemy's supply routes. Marines pushed armored vehicles forward, even under heavy fire. FA-50s and OV-10s delivered airstrikes and close support from above. Surveillance planes and drones provided real-time intelligence to troops on the ground. The PNP's Special Action Force worked alongside the military in urban counterterrorism operations. They secured the outskirts and managed evacuation centers for civilians. The army paid the highest price. Many soldiers and police gave their lives in the battle for Marawi. Alongside the fighting, troops also helped civilians and supported recovery efforts. This victory proves what coordinated government action can accomplish. Every branch played a crucial role, but the story of Marawi is also about its people, not just military strategies and tactics. Amidst the chaos, incredible stories of courage emerged. These acts of bravery came not only from soldiers, but from ordinary people as well. Take the 1st Infantry Tabak Division, for example. They spent months on the front lines. They fought day and night, never letting up for 5 long months. Many were wounded, but after recovering, they returned to the fight. One of the most unforgettable stories is that of Private First Class Don Ryan Bayot. Wounded and surrounded, he radioed his location, sacrificing himself to save his fellow soldiers. There were civilian heroes too. Volunteer Maranao groups risked their lives to rescue those trapped in the fighting. They evacuated children, the elderly, and the sick from Matavindos. They delivered food and medicine, saving countless lives. Thousands found shelter in evacuation centers run by teachers and social workers. Soldiers faced exhaustion, hunger, and emotional scars. Many went months without seeing their families. Community groups became the voice of the victims, reaching out to the government and the media. Their efforts kept hope and the spirit of the community alive. On October 23, 2017, 5 months after the fighting began, the government declared the end of combat operations in Marawi. The city's liberation was celebrated throughout the country, but this victory came at a heavy price. More than 1,000 people lost their lives, including 168 soldiers and police officers, as well as many civilians. The once beautiful city was left in ruins. Ground Zero was nearly leveled. The devastation was heartbreaking. To lead the rebuilding, the government created Task Force Bangon Marawi. The task ahead was enormous. First, the area had to be cleared of unexploded bombs and improvised explosive devices. Homes, roads, bridges, mosques, and government buildings all needed to be rebuilt. Most importantly, the wounds in people's hearts and minds needed healing. Even now, years later, the recovery continues. New buildings have risen and some families have returned home. Slowly, life is coming back to parts of the city. Yet many people still live in temporary shelters.